Today is going to be a big day, and I know we hear that at the start of every single YouTube video as a hook, but today is actually going to be objectively quite large because we are doing a big brake kit on my BMW E30. I'd like to preface this video by saying that the factory brake setup on the E30 is more than enough to stop the car, even with an S52 or a larger engine in the engine bay. Everything we're about to do is extremely unnecessary and extremely expensive, but so is owning the car, so alas, we carry on. This is the setup we're working with. So the obvious AP Racing 4-piston brake calipers front and rear. Most people would typically just do the front. I said, let's do both. 2-piece rotors, front and rear. We're gonna be running a 7 series brake booster setup. All the necessary components to get these new calipers in the factory location. Because of the new brakes, I said, yes, new wheel bearings and new hubs, front and rear. OEM components to get those situated correctly. The e-brake is toast, so we're gonna replace it from the handle all the way back to the drum, new components all around. And then we have the manual for a little bit of literary instruction. Thank you, Chris, for that. So this is the setup. I'm gonna talk to you guys a little bit more as it starts going on the car, talk to you about why I chose certain things and a little bit of instruction on how to install certain things, just in case you guys are working with a similar setup on your car. First thing I'm going to do is remove the actual parking brake cables. All we do, 10mm nut, that's how you adjust it, pop that off, and then it should come through the tubes that it goes through in the trans tunnel. Replacing this parking brake cable can be a very grueling task for 2 major reasons. The first one being the insert that goes into that section in the trans tunnel is metal on metal. These are 30-year-old cars, 35-year-old cars. It's going to be fused together. It's going to be a pain to get off, and there's no leverage because it's in such an inconvenient area. So that can happen. Or what's gonna happen to my car, because I already tested this, there's a little square on the section that attaches to the parking brake lever. Sometimes it won't pull through under the lever to come out the tunnel. So what I'm gonna do, mitigate both these problems, get the Dremel out, cut it, pull the rubber section out the back, pull the cable out the front, and then throw the new cables in place. I did this first because everything else under the car is new or has been restored. This is actually the last piece that needs to come out. So I'm kind of excited to get it done with, and then we'll move on to the brakes, the bearings, and the hubs. Original parking brake lines out of here. So the new ones are on, and like I said before, these were the only old part that was underneath the car, so it wasn't bothering me, but it sure is nice to have some new ones installed. Can't really do much with them now because we need the rear hub and the dust shield on because it attaches right through there. So we'll move on to the front. First thing being the little dust shield here for the wheel bearing. That just snaps onto the knuckle, super easy. And then it's time for the wheel bearing hub assembly. These all now come with this ABS toothed ring on the back. You could just leave it, it's no problem, but it's a little bit of extra weight and I'd like it to be a bit cleaner, so I'm gonna Dremel a little edge into it, and I've been told by the forums that it just snaps right off, and then we can proceed to the regular installation of the hub and move on to the other parts. right, so I've got the bracket mounted for the AP Racing caliper, torqued it down to 90 foot-pounds. This is the factory spec for the brake caliper, so I took that and used it. Now to move on to the actual rotor. I am keeping this car 4x100. One of the main reasons I love this chassis so much is the 4x100 pattern. A lot of people, when they're doing big brake kits or engine upgrades, they are gonna switch to 5x120, which is the M3 bolt pattern as well. Didn't wanna do that. Unfortunately, what it leaves me with is fewer options for big brake kits, specifically rotors. So you'll notice in this rotor that the fastening screw to the hub doesn't line up, so I'm not gonna be able to use it. Most of you guys will know this doesn't matter whatsoever once the wheel's on the car. Rotor's not going anywhere. The only inconvenience is that it's a little loose when you have the wheel off when you're working on the car, but I'm gonna get wheel studs in a little bit, probably by the end of this video, and it should make things a lot easier. Until then, I'm just gonna hold it on with some wheel bolts. Now we can move on to the calipers. So these are AP Racing 4-piston calipers. They're directional, you can tell by the arrow on the back, or just that the bleeding nipples need to be at the top when mounted to the car. What I really, really love about these, they're mounted to the bracket through the back. So the rotor's here and it slides on this way, so you take it off. Simple. A lot of cars are like this, but the E30 factory setup is abysmal. It is that little bracket that mounts to the knuckle and then the actual caliper mounts to that. It's complicated when you need to remove it, and if it's old, it's kind of stubborn. So this will be a big upgrade in both convenience and of course braking power. So factory installed brake pads. So we'll just pop the foam out and pop these on. I'm not going to Loctite them right now because I still have to figure out the ducts on the car, but I will torque them down to spec. Passenger side, all done. You'll notice I didn't attach these soft brake lines. The reason for this, when I put the engine in a couple of months, the way I'm gonna do it is dropping the front subframe, putting the engine on the subframe, and then dropping the chassis of the car onto it. Fortunate, we have the lift. It's just gonna make life a lot easier and eliminate any risk of scratching up the engine bay, which is always fantastic. So that's the reason it's not attached. We'll do it once the engine's in. Now, I'm gonna move on to the driver's side. I'm just gonna run a time lapse right through it because it's the exact same as the passenger. All right, so both front brakes are on, successful. However, I have run into some large issues in the rear. First one being, I ordered the wrong rear drive flange. These are for a early model 318, which had a smaller wheel bearing and trailing arm, meaning these don't fit. What happened, I was on Real OEM looking at a throttle body cable from an early model 318, and I guess I just got over to the rear axle stuff and ordered these by mistake with the wrong part number. Oh well. Issue is with the new ones, they're on a 3-week back order from Germany, so it's gonna be a little bit before they come in, which is unfortunate, and the reason that I'm probably gonna split this video up into two. Another reason being, there's actually so much involved with the rear end that I think it's gonna be better to separate it into two. This video is pretty long as it is, but there's so much to do to the rear. Like this dust shield, so this retains the parking brake, so you need to have it, but it doesn't fit whatsoever. The rotor exceeds this lip by about 1 inch all the way around. So we need to cut the lip off and then repaint it in a way that it should, or that it needs to, because I want it to look as factory as possible. Beyond that, I ended up getting a bunch of the OEM retaining clips or retaining pieces for the parking brake zinc coated. So it is gonna be effectively like a full rear parking brake restoration, which I think could be pretty cool because it is a simple mechanism, but the actual installation of it is so complicated. There's so many little pieces that I would like to maybe explain in quite a bit of detail so that people can use the video as a resource if they're doing the parking brake on their car, because it is something that does need done every so often as like regular maintenance for E30s. And then beyond that, just the regular brake installation with the lines. I think it's best splitting it into two. Now that I'm thinking about it, this video is plenty long and I don't want it to exceed like 40 minutes with the rear. So that being said, this video is done. Thank you guys for watching. The rear video should be up as soon as those drive flanges come in. I can put it all together. I have everything else at this point. I'm just missing those. So a couple more weeks, that'll be up. But in the meantime, there's gonna be a video on the full front end installation of the firewall, the valance, fenders, everything piecing back together with more of that zinc plated hardware that I just got restored from a place in Toronto. So thank you for watching. Those videos will be coming up soon.